Hello, hello, and welcome along to the latest Forza Italian football podcast, the only Italian football podcast bringing you into the Serie A stadiums every single week, watching teams get relegated, watching teams fail to win the Scudetto. We were at everything this weekend. Anyway, I am your usual host, Conor Clancy. Joining me is the now consistent Pogorzelski. Kev, hello.
Hi Connor, how are you?
Don't try and play that card now just because the camera is rolling. You're an absolute disgrace. I know you don't really care, so we won't pretend that you do. Um, Vito Doria is also here. Vito, hello, hello.
Hi, Connor. I'm feeling good for obvious reasons. Yeah, let's get chatting away.
I didn't actually ask how you were this week. I'm protesting, Vito, so I don't care if you're doing well or not. But
Okay.
let's dive straight in because we could have seen the Scudetto won. We didn't. We could have seen the Scudetto won again. We didn't. So the Derby della Lanterna is the obvious place to start. Sampdoria rule Genova again, Vito. Take it away.
Oh, beautiful. Well, the game finished at 2-0, but it was one of those games where we could have won by more, to be perfectly honest. Um, yeah, it was a really entertaining game, especially in the first half, and was pretty much full throttle for the first 10 or 15 minutes. Um, Gregoire Defrel opened the scoring with a Quagliarella assist, and then Quagliarella himself stepped up to take a penalty after Davide Biraski was sent off for a handball. But Genoa, the way they played, they had some possession, but it was rather predictable and futile. And probably their best chances came from two long-range shots from Miguel Veloso. I also felt that Radu had a top game for Genoa, and that probably stopped us from winning far more convincingly.
It could have been a lot uglier. And Kev, you described this as probably being the game of the weekend.
Yeah, I think from the action on the pitch as well as the action in the stadium, I think the Derby della Lantana never really disappoints, and it's sort of right up there. I think.
Mm. We've both been to them in the past, and I always describe it every time it's played as the best derby in Italy, which 100% is. That stadium lends itself to creating a really good atmosphere, especially quite similarly to San Siro. It accommodates the tifos that the ultras put on very, very nicely because it's the square shape rather than the circular thing. So they can be a little bit more creative with what they do. But yeah, the football kind of usually lives up to it. And there was a red card as well. But good result for Samp. I mean, it was an important result given they were beaten by Atalanta in the last month. It's teams are dropping points around them, and they're still very much in the fight for Europe, Kev.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be. I'm really looking for this this weekend, particularly as I'm coming over to Italy. But with them facing Bologna, obviously in their own little battle down the opposite end of the table, could be a really interesting contest down there.
Kev, where are you going to be on Saturday?
Bologna, Sampdoria.
Okay. Um, all right, we'll discuss this off air, but I'm at Parma Milan, so maybe we could sort something out. But Kev or Vito, you must be happy with this. You must fancy your chances of at least battling until the last couple of rounds for Europe.
The battle seems to be lasting a bit longer than usual because the teams above us are squandering points. So it's a great time for us to capitalize on that. We haven't been fading away as badly as in the previous two seasons under Marco Giampaolo, but with Lazio losing to AC Milan, Torino drawing to Cagliari at home, uh, I think it helps our cause a lot. And of course, Atalanta not being able to get the victory this morning, Australian time that is, or late tonight European time, I think that helps us. And with the 6 rounds remaining, we really need to make the most of it if we are serious about getting into Europe.
Yeah, I stayed in Dov's place last night in Milan because I couldn't get back to Parma from Verona, but I could get to Milan, so it made sense about this European race. And we both kind of thought that there are still plenty of twists and turns to come because everyone's just dropping points. And one thing that Sam Pav, Kev, is a goal scorer who just won't stop in Fabio Quagliarella. We spoke about him recently, and you basically said that he's the worst player in the world and you hate him and he should never play for a football team again. But what do you think of him now?
I didn't quite say that now, Connor, did I? I said there were younger options for the Italian national side. No, I think exactly, particularly when you look at the two sides, and you think that Genoa lost Piontek earlier in the season. From there, their season died a death. Whereas the form of Quagliarella this year has really allowed Samp to push on into these latter stages of the season. Like Vito just said, they're kind of usually over. Their season sort of petered out a little bit, and with someone still rattling the goals at the rate that he is, that they've got as good a chance as any as clinching a European place.
Have Samp actually done anything better this year, though? Because they have lost 2 of the last 3 games. Or is it just a case of everyone else around them dropping points?
No, I think it's in that little pack behind probably even Milan in fourth. Everybody's been relatively consistent in comparison to each other. So I don't think it's so much a case of the likes of Lazio or Roma. Obviously, Roma have dropped off from last season, but there's been a pack of clubs there that have all performed relatively similarly, and Samp in the past have generally sort of dropped off and fell away, and they've just managed to maintain that this year, like you say, probably through the goals that they're able to produce from their aging frontman.
All right, we'll move on. We will go to the first of the games I was at this weekend, which was Juventus B against Spal, where the title should have been decided in Ferrara. Juve just needed a point. They went 1-0 up through Moise Kean, and remarkably, they lost. Well, I say remarkably. It was so obvious they weren't going to win this game. For most of the first half, Spal dominated, and I tweeted when I saw the team lineups that Spal are going to win. And then as soon as Spal equalised, I tweeted again to say Spal win incoming because they were bossing it. And Allegri's decision to play a lot of his kids has been criticised a bit, Vito. I'm not sure what you think about this, but he was playing teenagers who have never seen a Serie A pitch before. And I think Sinisa Mihailovic was one of those to come out and condemn what he did. He said, I think his exact quote was, I don't like what Allegri did. But people have said that he's kind of almost offering these teams an out. So Spal are effectively safe now. And is that fair on the likes of Bologna and those teams around them? Is it Allegri's business what the other teams do?
It is unfair on Bologna, and I can understand why Mihailovic would feel that way. But ultimately, Allegri doesn't need to care about Mihailovic's cause. He has to focus on his own priorities. In my belief, I reckon that Allegri has pretty much earned the right to play at these kids because they have a very comfortable lead in the Serie A race, and the priority should be Europe. So they've got the Ajax game, which is going to be played Tuesday night European time, and it's better to have the best players available for the Ajax game than just to worry about keeping a Serie A game as competitive as possible. I reckon this is a good time to give the kids a chance too, so they get the taste of Serie A action instead of doing it when they have just a 1 or 2 point lead. There's no chance now, realistically, of Napoli catching up. So I think Allegri or any other coach in that position can give the kids a go.
What do you reckon, Kev? Does he owe it to the integrity of the competition of Serie A?
I think there's an element of that, and we've seen in recent weeks that Juve have played weakened sides in inverted commas, but there's also been a fair amount of experience on the pitch. I think when you go with such a youthful side, it does show an element of disrespect, and also from a personal point of view, I don't think it actually benefits the young players that you're throwing in, because particularly if they lose like they did at the weekend, what are they gaining from that? Really, it's you want to integrate a young player into the team, a little bit like Moses Kean has previously around more experienced players so they can actually learn, and actually feed off of that, win effectively. Whereas you just throw a load of youngsters in, they lose a game against a Serie A, and they must go back, even knowing that the league's wrapped up, but they don't care. Half of them haven't played enough games, I imagine, to get a league winners medal. So what do? They go back to their homes that night thinking, are we actually good enough at this level? And it's only because of the overall quality and experience of what they're playing with. So, what do they benefit from it?
I'd agree with that. I wrote in my post-match thing that it's not going to do them much good to go to Ferrara and get beaten by Spal for their confidence. And then Allegri was quite strange in the press conference afterwards, because he started saying things like, I'm not sure if these guys have a future at Juventus, but trying to be complimentary about them at the same time. And I just kind of thought, this isn't the time for that. Like, you are probably not going to be there for too much longer. If you're there next season, it will be a surprise to a lot of people. Just say, yeah, they've got great futures in the game. And he said, I'm not sure if they can do it here, but they definitely have futures as footballers because they're with us now. And it was such a bizarre way to approach that.
It's kind of a tough love approach when there doesn't need to be one.
Yeah, absolutely. Juve have the title sewn up, all but mathematically, and he just comes out saying things like this. He should be praising their attitudes and things. I just thought it was so strange. And I don't know what he thought he was going to get from it, because some of these kids might not play again between now and the end of the season. So their one experience of Serie A football was to play, and then for the manager to kind of have a go at them afterwards.
My concern, if I was a Juventus fan, would be, does this show that Allegri is really worried about the Ajax second leg? Because before the first leg, he didn't rest that many players when he could have done exactly the same. Although they did have Milan, didn't they? But anyway, just question why he felt the need to rest so many before that second leg.
Yeah, I'm looking at, we've got a few people popping up in the comments already. Doria boy, who I should say, on Twitter, on the podcast, he's probably Forza Italian football's biggest reader and listener to the podcast. The guy's just always on it as soon as something new goes up. So shout out to him. But he reckons there's nothing wrong with playing a week inside, and he makes the point that Mihajlovic wouldn't have been complaining if it was against Bologna that Juve made all of those changes, which is a fair point. Allegri kind of said something funny, though, that it was because his players were so tired, because they got back from Amsterdam on Thursday and then left for Ferrara on Friday. He said, well, these guys put in a better performance than the first teamers would have. I just got, it's definitely not true, is it? Because then you look at Napoli the next day and they went full strength, but we'll get on to them. And Giuseppe comes in and says, when someone eventually beats Juve and claims the Scudetto for themselves, will this Juve team be remembered as Il Grande Juve? Vito, what do you think?
No. For this Juventus to be a Grande Juve, it's got to be about doing something in Europe. And this team, to me, does not compare to Trapattoni's Juventus, which managed to win all the 3 major European trophies available in that era. So they won the Cup Winners' Cup, UEFA Cup, and the old European Cup. And this is no match for Lippi's Juve, which actually bet Ajax on penalties in '96. So no European trophies, no Grande Juve.
Kev, do you go along with that?
Well, I don't. You read a piece I
prepared. Well, let's not go too much into that, because we'll get into that a little bit more depth once the title has been wrapped up. But
no, yeah, and I disagree with you, with Vito, really, that the European trophy is what would make this a great Juventus side. I still don't think it is. I think it's too pedestrian all over the pitch, just compared to the sides that they've had in the last sort of 8 total winning seasons. And there is just this overall reliance to look for Ronaldo to bail them out at the moment. I think some of the players, whether consciously or subconsciously, feel that they look for him too often because they've bought this superstar that has been purchased to help bring that European trophy, well, the European trophy.
Forget about Cristiano Ronaldo, mate. It's all about Moise Kean. He scored again, and I should say, before I forget, he was taken off in Ferrara after not doing particularly all that much. I mean, he took his goal well and he did well in spells, but I really liked that the majority of the Paolo Mazza applauded him off, with a lot of people even standing up to applaud him off. And at first, I kind of just instinctively thought, oh, these are just Juve fans everywhere. But there were people in Spal shirts and Spal scarves standing up and doing it, which, after the couple of weeks he's had, I think was a really, really nice touch. And those who did that deserve a lot of credit for that, because you wouldn't get that in a lot of places in Italy. But fair play to the Spal fans on that one. But Vito Ken scored again. It was a well-taken goal. And surely he's in a position now where he should be expecting to play against Ajax.
I reckon he should be. He's had a good month or so, and I think with his latest emergence, it just gives Juventus another attacking outlet, and they've already got enough options as it is. Even if he doesn't start, at least Allegri knows that he's got someone that can make a difference, even if it's for the last 20 or 30 minutes of the match.
Kev, would you have Ken in your starting 11 if you were Massimiliano Allegri in Turin on Tuesday?
I think you would do, just on form. But I do think that everything's directed towards playing with Ronaldo as the focal point. So I just can't see it happening.
It is a tough one, but his goal was very, very well taken.
I'm still trying to decide whether it was intentional.
I think it was. I've only seen replays after the match. So at the Palomazza, they don't have little TVs in the press pit, which is a bit annoying. But it looked from his movements at the time that it was. The way it was one motion, the way he started going that way, turned his body. And I thought he deserves a lot of credit for that, because if the ball was coming from 20 yards away, that's a difficult finish to execute. The fact that it was coming from so close at such pace, I think it was just...
That's what makes me wonder whether he was trying to sort of trap it on his instep to take another touch, but it was coming in so fast. He shaped it. I've not seen a replay slow enough to decide whether you can see where his head looks before the ball arrives, but it's just so quick that you maybe never tell.
Yeah, I guess.
Just give him the credit on the benefit of the doubt.
This is it, and he's in such a good run of form at the moment as well that it's kind of hard to think that maybe he didn't mean it. So he's had a bad time. Let's give it to him, Kev. Don't be so negative. Come on. On that then, Juve Ajax, Kev, do you give them a chance? Obviously, they're quite well placed to go through, but they're favourites, right?
Yeah, they're favourites because they're at home. I think it's a bit of a cliche, but I think it's crucial he gets the first goal. Not that I think Ajax could necessarily shut up shop if they got the first, but I think Juve could panic a little in trying to chase an equaliser, and Ajax could pick them off. They were very impressive with the ball in the second half in the Amsterdam Arena on Wednesday night.
Yeah, you'd imagine that Juve will just want to keep the ball for as long as possible, because if Ajax have it for any period of time, they can cause real damage. I know Frankie de Jong went off injured at the weekend, but I think the latest is that he is going to be featuring in Turin. So that's a big boost for them, because he's a fantastic player. We saw what he could do at the Bernabeu earlier in the season. So maybe he can produce a little bit of magic again. Vito, what do you reckon? Who goes through?
Well, I believe Juve will go through. It's just more or less based on the individual quality, although Ajax do better as a whole than the sum of the parts. And it's been a fantastic run for Ajax, but I think when you got players that Juve have got, and they're still in good form as compared to Real Madrid, who have shown signs of decline this season. So I think Juve can do the business as long as they keep looking for goals. If they let Ajax have the ball, then the Dutch have a chance of getting a result for themselves.
Over to Spal then. 35 points for the season, 6 clear of relegation. Level on points with Parma, 2 behind Sassuolo. They're well in contention now to be the top team in Emilia-Romagna by the end of the season. And they've won 4 of their last 5 games, Kev.
Yeah, and they hadn't picked up a win at home for quite a while. And
I'll tell you, mate, it was since September, and then I was there when Claudio Ranieri and Roma rocked up and they pumped them.
Yeah, so it's back-to-back home victories, I think, which seem to spark this resurgence, and yeah, they look clear now with Chievo and Frosinone both losing after a little bit of a pick me up. So yeah, they should finish the season quite strongly.
Yeah, well, I've always been quite fond of Spal, so it would be nice for them to stay up. And Paolo Mazza is behind San Siro, my favourite place to watch football in Serie A, so it's nice to be keeping them up there. They are now ahead of Genoa as well, which will bring a little smile to the face of Vito Doria. Anyway, to the other team who I saw this weekend, which was Napoli. They relegated Chievo at the Stadio Marcantonio Bentegodi in Verona. This is my first time at the Bentegodi, and it was... Dov asked me how it was, and my initial response was, it wasn't as terrible as I thought it was going to be. It's quite a nice place to watch football, you know? Just a shame about the lack of atmosphere, but this isn't Chievo's fault. We'll start with Chievo, because they are gone after an 11-year stay in Serie A, and I don't like the fact that people are celebrating Chievo's relegation, because I think people have a problem with them for no great reason. Kev, the Flying Donkeys have crashed down to earth. Are you sad to see them go?
Yeah, in a way, because I think you have to praise people with limited resources and what they've done over the years that they've been in Serie A. You know, not always pretty, but you know they've brought us some interesting moments over the years. Obviously, people sometimes point towards the way that the club is maybe run as the reason why they are happy to see them go down, but no, it is a shame in its own little way.
Yeah, I think it is, because they're such a small team. Forget the way it's run. The supporters of that team, because it's effectively a suburb of a town outside Verona, and they've been in Serie A for 11 years. They got to the Champions League third qualification round. It's an amazing story. I think it really is, and to see them go down, I know it's nice to kind of change things up a little bit, especially if we get a couple of Southern teams up for next season. It's always nice to get that little bit of diversification. But I'll quite miss them, you know. Vito?
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here, and look, the reason I would say I'm glad that they're down is that it's more that I think comes to the point with these small clubs, sometimes they might not have enough financial resources to last, and it could be detrimental to the whole survival and all that. But more than anything, it's just if we compare Kiev of this 11-year spell compared to when they first got promoted back in 2001, 2002, they've played some very dour football, relied on veterans. And to me, it's the antithesis of not how I see football, but also I think what Italian football should be becoming. To me, they represented the old values, whereas the teams of, say, 2001 to 2007, they played to attack. They had players that punched above their weight, and that's when they got into the Champions League qualifying round and got into the UEFA Cup, because they exceeded expectations by being more progressive, and they got some really impressive results. That being said, though, look, I really don't want them to keep going down, down, and down, but I think maybe a few years in Serie B might give them a chance to sort of rejuvenate the squad and have a look of where they should be going in the long term. Should they make another push to be in Serie A for a third spell, or should they assess their finances and just focus on keeping the books as balanced as possible and bring in some of the youth academy products?
I think step one has to be to just ensure long-term survival, right? Because it's such a strange case, because anyone around Verona will play for Hellas coming up as a kid, because they are the team there. They're a bigger club than Chievo. So it's hard to know what they do, because they don't have money. They don't have the name in the region. So I don't know. But yeah, it could be a really, really slippery slope for them. You really hope it's not, because we've seen teams in recent seasons just fall and fall and fall and fall. But yeah, let's hope that it doesn't happen for the Flying Donkeys and they can return. Napoli then, Kev, they took the opposite approach to Juventus. They surprisingly actually played with their strongest team. Milik, Mertens, and Insigne all started, and they played some really, really nice stuff. They did win 3-1, and probably should have been more.
Yeah, it should have been more. They're so wasteful in front of goal, and I wouldn't be surprised if they played their whatever you want to call it, the first string, because Ancelotti wanted to punish them for how poor they were on Thursday night. I watched the game against Arsenal, and so many of the players just had a really sort of under par evening. They were sloppy with their passing. They were giving the ball away, and it just the mind boggles. It's like in between that game in the Europa League, they well again they were wasteful against Genoa the weekend before, and you just can't understand how they had such a poor performance at the Emirates.
Yeah, but this is them, isn't it? It's such a strange thing. Ancelotti said in his press conference afterwards, he was in quite funny form, actually. He kept pretending that he was angry and then laughing about things, and with his eyebrows, it's quite intimidating. But he was in fun form. He kept saying that it's nothing to do with their physicality. The players are in immense shape physically, and that's why he played them all. But it's more about their mentality. And with Napoli, you believe it. There just seems to be this mental block whenever they play teams in Europe, particularly English teams, where they just can't do it. And Vito, what is the problem?
Well, on the basis of what we saw against Arsenal, I just thought Arsenal easily pressured Napoli, and Napoli, they just couldn't cope. It wasn't like it was a fantastic press set up by Unai Emery, but just a little bit of pressure, they just wasted so many passes. With the second goal, I was surprised that Fabian Ruiz gave away the ball because he's been rather reliable for Napoli this season. And for the goal before that, most of it came through Arsenal's right or inside right channel, and that's Napoli's left. And Mario Rui, I don't get what Ancelotti sees in him, but he is a weak link in that Napoli side. So I think with the second leg, he's got to use Fauzi Gulam, because even if Gulam's not the best defensively, he will contribute far more going forward.
I agree with you on Rui, but the Gulam thing's a problem because he's quite clearly just not the player he was. Even Husai's the same. When they were both on it together that season, they were brilliant. But this year they've just not quite been themselves. So we've seen Malqui take over on the right and Rui play on the left. And every time I see Rui play, he leaves me thinking that he's not good enough. But then when you see Gulam, he's quite clearly not the player that we all remember as being either. But Kev, they did get the win here, and they'll take some confidence into Thursday night at the Stadio San Paolo. And Ancelotti is going all guns blazing, saying that it's going to be a special night. They're confident of a comeback, and it's a brave move.
I think it would be different if it was a 1 goal margin. I think he might have been more pragmatic, but they've got 2 goals to recover. If Arsenal score a goal, obviously they've got an even bigger hill to climb, and I think there's an element of if you try and well, I was there when he took Napoli to Anfield earlier in the season where they only needed 1 goal, and I think that meant that they went about it fairly cautiously. But it's hard then if you start with that sort of cagey approach to the game to then sort of get the players up into a higher gear. And I think if he just goes out to go flat out, all guns blazing, I think it's probably an easier starting point than trying to take it a little bit too carefully.
Yeah, well, he was saying that they need to attack, but they need to attack intelligently, because if they concede, it's done. They're not going to score 4 goals, so you can forget about that. And Arsenal will be dangerous on the counter-attack as well. But I should also say, actually, in the press conference, Domenico De Carlo came in, and the first thing he said, I'm not even sure if I heard him be asked the question, he just started apologising to the Chievo fans and the president for getting them relegated, and I felt really sorry for him. And he was asked a question by a couple of journalists, and he was told by his press officer to stop his answers in the middle of them. He wasn't happy. And then as he was leaving, he let the press officer go out of the room, and then he called the 2 journalists aside and spoke to them for about 10 minutes explaining everything they wanted to know, which I thought was a really nice touch. He struck me as quite a nice guy, so I've got a lot of time for him. Hopefully he can find himself a job if he gets the boot at Kievo, but hopefully he stays there and takes him back up. What's next? Okay, guys, the Serie A scandal of the weekend came at the Stadio San Siro, where two footballers celebrated a win. Milan beat Lazio 1-0. Acerbi in the week said that Lazio were a stronger team. Tumio Bakayoko replied on Twitter to say, see you on Saturday, and a nice little smiley face. Milan won. Bakayoko and Kessie got his shirt, and they held it up in front of the Curva Sud celebrating. And people lost their minds. And it's one of those moments where you think, there's really no fun allowed in football anymore, Vito, is there? We're not allowed to be happy about things.
Political correctness has gone out of control in this world now. It's unbelievable. There's so many snowflakes around. Just shake my head.
I saw a well-respected Italian journalist say that this was Italian football reaching a new low. I don't know where to begin.
I know the tweet that you're referring to, and my tweet responding to that got quite a few likes with that bit. But yeah, I definitely disagree with the comments that Tancredi Palmieri made. And yeah, I just think it was more just a bit of banter, a bit of joking around. And this is my philosophy in life. If you're going to be making jokes or even dishing out insults, you've got to be able to take that in return. So if Francesco Acerbi is feeling bitter or upset, and he has been because of what Frank Kessie and Timur Bakayoko have done, then I think he's got only himself to blame.
Yeah, but Acerbi doesn't seem to care. He released his own little comments afterwards to say, fair enough, we'll see you in the Coppa Italia semi-final or something along those lines. And Kev, this is fine, isn't it?
I think there are cases when this could be slightly disrespectful. However, I think you've got to take into account the reaction of the players. You know, the smiley face emoji on the Twitter exchange, to actually be able to just understand that they are a modern niche, trying to think how old Acerbi is, generation, and this is all it is meant for. It's just, poking fun at each other. Acerbi, surely when he hands his shirt over, knows that that something's going to happen with it for whatever, or at least that they're taking it as a little bit of a scalp, if you like, from the victory after the Twitter exchange. And I think everybody should just accept that that's what it is. It's just some modern footballers having bants. Yeah,
but it's true. People like to have fun. Acerbi's 31, so he's not quite your age, Kev. So he's closer to my generation than yours. So yeah, I'm sure he understands the situation, and he started it by saying that Lazio were the stronger team. So I'm sure he'll just kind of go back to the Olympico with his tail between his legs and accept it.
I think the problem with this is fans are very tribal, and they like to think that obviously all players hate each other, if you're playing for the opposition. And I kind of saw this firsthand at times, where there was a large contingent of Brazilian players in the Northwest playing for rival sides in Manchester and in Liverpool. And particularly with the increase in social media in the last few years, fans would lose their mind over these South Americans celebrating birthdays and things together. You play for Roma. How can you have dinner with a Lazio player?
But should those people not be happy with this because it's Milan fans or Milan players annoying an opposition player?
Well, yeah, exactly. But the fans people just want something to be annoyed about, I suppose, is the angle that I'm going for there. It's just
there's a lot of that around.
People like to be incensed at the moment for a variety of reasons.
The problem with social media is that it gives everyone's voice weight you know, and that can be an amazing thing, but also a terrible thing because
No, yeah,
even the most ridiculous opinions just gain ground and become like a news story. Then
I'm sure there's several Lazio fans that don't want to accept that Acerbi probably had a little wry smile to himself when he sort of saw the players parading the shirt, and thinking, we beat them in the Coppa Italia later. I think I might do the same.
Oh, absolutely,
and that's how it should be taken, with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, Gattuso's comments were he just basically smashed into why social media is a terrible thing for humanity, which was typically Gattuso, I guess. Never change, Reno. Never change. Apparently, I'm an Irish dictator, which is a bit harsh, I think. A little bit harsh.
That's John Delaney, isn't it?
Let's not talk about him because we'll do a podcast on him alone. Look how happy I am about that, by the way. There was an amazing, I say amazing in the loosest sense of the word. We got a response to the Forza Italian Football tweet that went up, a picture of Bakayoko and Kessie holding a shirt, and someone said, these are the same people who complain about racism. And Kev, is there a more idiotic take on this situation than that?
I was hoping not. I do hope not, but we've seen it too often that people will be complaining about this because of the race of the two individuals that are holding the shirt up, and given the difficulties that we've seen from, well, particularly recently in Italian stadia. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that we shouldn't really particularly dwell on it too much. And
now let's move on to the result then, shall we? Because Vito, it was pretty important. Milan beat Lazio in a big result, a big loss for Lazio too, because they're now a little bit short of the Champions League places.
At this stage, they are, and they do have a catch-up game against Udinese late in the week, so they might be able to get something out of that. But even so, I reckon they needed at least a point from this game, and to lose there, although it was from a penalty, I think it's still detrimental to any hopes of them reaching the Champions League spots. Now it's just made things harder for them to get the Champions League, but I think it still keeps the Europa League battle alive. So at least from my perspective, that makes things more exciting.
The Europa League would be the least they'd expect, really. But Kev, what's happening with Lazio? Because I know they don't exactly do it all the time against big teams, but this season as a whole, every time I've seen them, basically, I've been quite underwhelmed. And this is a team who have been so impressive in the last couple of seasons, but they're just not quite doing it this year.
Yeah, Ciro Immobile hasn't really been firing. There was a part of me when Felipe Anderson left in the summer thought it might be the right time for him to go, because he wasn't as good last season as he was maybe in the years before that. But also you've had Luis Alberto's had an up and down season. It's at the top end of the pitch, really, where if they'd had more of those big name players firing for them, that maybe they would have picked up the results against their direct competition for the European and Champions League places. Because I think that's where it comes down to. They'll be just behind Atalanta if they beat Udinese, but without actually taking points off those people out, bar Roma a couple of weeks ago in direct opposition, that's where you're going to lose ground on them.
Well, to Milan, Vito, an important win for them, keeps them fourth place. Now 6 games to go. They'll be hoping to just keep doing that between now and the end of the season.
Absolutely. I think that there has been some criticism about the style of play throughout the season, or a lack of identity. Then at other times we've talked about how they've been trying to play the ball out of the back and all that. Now it's come to the point where I think they should just be content with the results and just be able to hang on to those Champions League positions, because if Roma or Atalanta still get important results in the next 6 rounds and Milan slip up, I'm sure the way this season is, 4th place will still be up for grabs. It won't be a comfortable ride for Milan to just easily hold on to fourth.
No, nobody's going to pick up maximum points between end of the season. Everyone's just going to keep dropping them, which is going to make it quite interesting. Kev, your man, Pepe Reina, showed the importance of having a good backup goalkeeper.
Yeah, because this is you watch the highlights and it was Lazio that had the better of the attacking chances most of the game. And I thought it was going to be really important to have some with that level of experience behind Donnarumma again. Obviously, there's no Abbiati at Milan anymore. I'm a huge fan of Reina. I can't believe he went there once Donnarumma had really resolved his contract issue with Milan, because he's 35, I think maybe approaching 36 this summer, but he's still got a good half decade in him as a goalkeeper.
Yeah, well, he'd be at Napoli if the president and whatever wasn't always causing problems there, I guess, right? I don't think he actually wanted to leave there, so maybe he just liked staying in Italy and Milan was the only option. Who knows? It's always hard to work out why players make moves. You do kind of forget reasons beyond footballing do play a part as well. But anyway, it is what it is. Let's go to Atalanta Empoli, because Atalanta had 47 shots.
Yep.
47 shots to Empoli's, I don't know, 1 or something. And of course, that meant the game finished 0-0. Oh my God, this is a game that I've seen 15 times this season, but just a more exaggerated version. How, Kev, did the ball not go into the net at least once?
So I've only seen the highlights and the statistics for this. It sounds as though it was more an absolutely man of the match performance from the opposition goalkeeper as opposed to wastefulness, if you like, because I think it was it something like 32 of those shots were on target.
I don't think it was. No, it was 18. I think were on target.
18 out of 47.
Yeah.
I thought it was somewhere around the other way. Anyway, it is still just astonishing that they can have that many chances. That people obviously go on about this expected goals ratios now, and I believe that was something around 6.
I think it was 6.83.
Yeah. But this is sadly probably where Atalanta are gonna not quite manage to get any consistency to sneak into the Champions League places, I'm afraid to tell you.
That's it, but it's against the bad teams that the problems arise. So Atalanta have to play Juve, Napoli, and someone else. And I fancy it against those teams because they go to war and they take the chances when they play the bigger teams. It's when they play the smaller teams that they don't. But yeah, the Empoli keeper played well, but not as well as he should have had to for having near 50 shots taken against them. There were some that there's just no explanation for how the ball didn't go in, really. There was a low shot that Gianluca Mancini backheeled and the goalkeeper just managed to be there. There was another Zapata header at the back post that he missed. But other than that, it was
There was one where the
days.
ball got fired across the goal line and Zapata was inches away from sort of sliding it in. I saw that as well.
That was the moment where I thought, okay, yeah, this is 0-0. Or else Empoli win
15 minutes to go, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah. But the referee, I'm not moaning about it, but I just don't really understand the situation. Because it's twice in an Atalanta game I've seen it, where it's been 0-0 in the last minute, and the ref's blown up with about 15 seconds left. And there were 4 minutes minimum added on. Empoli wasted about 2 minutes of it, and it was blown up after with 40 seconds played. I just don't understand this rule, but oh well, what can you do? Anyway, we'll move on. Oh, Papu Gomez, by the way, he's so good. He's so good. Just the way he moves, and I feel sorry for him sometimes because everyone else is terrible compared to him. Even Josip Ilicic sometimes is bad compared to him, and that says a lot. But Inter, who did they play? They played Frosinone and they won, obviously, because Frosinone are getting relegated. And the question here is, Mauro Icardi doesn't take penalties anymore. Why not?
Yeah, I find that rather bizarre, to be honest. Maybe it's just peacemaking move, I can only assume. But it's very odd because usually he does take them. So to see Perisic step up, it is odd. But at the same time, at least Perisic did score it. If he missed, I think it would be an even bigger controversy.
I think Icardi took one last week, actually, didn't
He
he?
took one on his return against Genoa.
What's happened there? Has
That's
he done
what I
something
wondered.
else?
Well, I didn't realise until I saw him celebrating with Perisic. And then I thought, oh, hang on. But
Yeah, I don't know. Guys, do we have to talk about Inter this week? The third.
No, we can move on.
Yeah, I'm not bothered. I'm really not bothered talking about Inter. So if you're here for that, come back next week, I guess. To Roma. Roma got a win. They beat Udinese 1-0. And finally, Edin Dzeko scored at the Olimpico, Vito.
Was a well-taken goal. I think it was Pellegrini that played the pass to El Shaarawy, and then El Shaarawy just touched it into Dzeko's shot, and there was no need for the Bosnian to blast it. It was just technically sound strike, and another much-needed win for Roma. Whether they make the Champions League again, I think it's very slim chances, but at least it gives them some hope of playing European football for 2019-2020.
Yeah, he was clearly so relieved as well. There was a video, I think it was the AS Roma EN Twitter account that put it up of Dzeko just mouthing "Mamma Mia" after scoring it when Stefan El Shaarawy went to celebrate with him, which quite a nice touch because he has struggled this season. But Kev, they were still quite poor.
yeah, they were. It was an awfully wet day in the capital, so I don't know if we can give them any credit for that. But you know, they're just poor. You know why they got rid of Di Francesco? I've said it before, as I can hear in your voice.
Let's not go down that route today.
I don't know where they're going. I really don't know where they're going.
No, they're not going anywhere this season. It's just a matter of going to the end of the season and then trying to go somewhere else. But I don't know. Vito, any more thoughts on this game? Because I'm kind of bored of Roma too.
Imagine what Olsen would have done in that those conditions.
He'd have had a field day. He would have been
throwing him into his own net.
I think he might have tried to have a little swim and ended up drowning in a 6-yard box. But oh well, poor Robin. Yeah, I think he'd have had a nice day. Vito, any thoughts?
Udinese is on the counter-attack, so I think if Olsen played, Udinese might have won. But for me, the game itself wasn't the most exciting bit. The most interesting bit was something I stumbled upon before the game. There was a video that the AS Roma can't have put up because a fan had been trolling Cengiz Ünder in a goal compilation. And he said, I could have replicated that goal. So they took the fan to the stadium. They gave him a kit. He had 3 chances to score that goal. And the third chance, he had just missed the post. But the other times, he just slipped up and it was hilarious.
I've not seen this. That sounds good.
It's an April 12 video. So it was uploaded on Friday. And I think people should go check it out. Without spoiling too much, the guy did not have boots. So that did not help his
I already know what's going to happen. That's excellent.
I'll watch the video anyway because just the way it pans out, it's still rather hilarious.
Yeah, sometimes that Twitter account is very, very good. Sometimes it's a little bit annoying. Anyway, moving on again. What's left?
Fiorentina.
Oh, yeah, Fiorentina. Oh, 0-0.
Santander's dive.
Right, talk us through it. I didn't actually see this, Kev.
Oh,
you
you
put a
don't
laughing
seen it.
emoji in.
Yeah, so the game is obviously drawing to a conclusion. It's not been a particularly great game. Santander breaks away. You think he's going to have a free run on the goal, but before you know it, Lafont is on him. He comes out to have a swipe at the ball. Santander lays the ball off to the right, but then inexplicably dives to the floor without being touched. There's a good yard between him and the goalkeeper, and I don't know. I just kept waiting to see them go to VAR and send him off or book him for it. I'm still not sure because I only watched the highlights whether he did get booked for it. But yeah, he went down in installments.
I can imagine he's a big man.
Yeah, you should try and find that as much as Vito's video of the water sports in Rome.
You're gonna need to link me to that. Oh, sorry. You're gonna need to link me to that because everyone knows my thoughts on Big Federico Santander, so I'd quite like to watch it. So please hunt it out for me. But Kev, Vincenzo Montella's back at the Artemio Franchi, and I don't really know why.
No, nor do I. It was when I saw that. I can't remember where I was last week. Oh, I know. I came out of Anfield last week after the Champions League fixture, and I saw that Pioli had gone, and I thought, okay, that's great. Well, not great the fact that he'd gone, but I thought it's enough time for a new coach to come in and maybe assess what squad he's got there, and then the club can have a real think about what they want to do next year. And maybe you're going to give it to a young coach. And then I thought to myself, no, they've still got the Coppa Italia semi-final, so it's a strange time to leave because he could potentially still go out on a high. There's no Juventus, who have obviously dominated the competition for the last few years. And then a few days later, they announced Montella, which I've not seen whether that is, uh, a short term decision, and he's only there till the end of the season. I haven't seen the length of contract
I
he's
can't
signed,
imagine that being the case.
but no, exactly. That's what I thought, and I think you're just taking another step back in time because with the players he's got there, I don't see him sort of sparking what he had when he had that trio of Pizarro, um, it was Aquilani and Bora Valero, and then you had Gomez and Rossi up front. They've just not got the squad there for that. So I just don't understand why they've gone back to Montella.
No, it is quite strange. And I do still have a lot of sympathy for how things went for him at Milan, and I don't really hold him fully accountable for it. But what's he done since leaving Fiorentina that Fiorentina think he's the man to take over? Because Sevilla was a mess. Milan wasn't a success. I don't really understand.
Can't still be paying his contract up, surely.
No, it would make sense actually, that wouldn't it? If they just brought him back in.
It's quite a common occurrence, but yeah, I don't know whether the owners there want someone that maybe they trusted him last time, even though it didn't end particularly how they wanted. And we did say the other week about Di Francesco, it's not, you've either got to allow a coach to learn by his mistakes, and if Montella has made mistakes at Fiorentina, at Milan and Seville, then maybe he comes back and he is going to be a different coach for them because he's learned from the mistakes that he made, or how he liaised with club hierarchy and things.
Yeah, I think that's quite true, but it's something that we always forget as well, is that players and coaches do change as they go along. So maybe he's learned from his recent errors. You don't know. We won't know until we see how his team actually play. I just thought we should probably give Stefano Pioli a bit of a nod because it had gone a bit stale for him there, but we saw some Fiorentina fans tweeting about it. The way he managed the whole situation with the story passing last season, he deserves a lot of credit for that. And Fiorentina fans
absolutely. And I think you see that because they're almost the figurehead of a club above the owners, above maybe a particular player. Whatever the circumstances around a tragedy, it does take an emotional toll on the person that has to be the front of any media interviews. They're the ones that have got the cameras thrust in their face, particularly in the current era when anything like that happens to a football club. So yeah, he deserves a lot of credit for how he did do that. Take on that role for the club, I think.
The Curva were singing his name as well during the game, which is a nice touch for them to acknowledge on a human level what he did for that club, and I guess the whole city really. It was really hit by it, but we've had a comment to say I'll miss his purple turtleneck, which I really will too, because I thought Pioli looked amazing in the purple Fiorentina gear. It was fantastic, but sadly it's no more. But he'll get a job. He'll be fine. He won't be out of work for too long. But he's already been at Lazio, Inter, and Fiorentina, so it's hard to see what happens for him next. Does he go abroad? Yeah, it'll be available, won't it?
It will be available.
Could he?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who takes him abroad, other than I suppose we're looking at the Spanish league because I can't see he doesn't really have that profile for maybe a Premier League club to go for him.
He'd end up with someone like West Ham if he went to the Premier League, wouldn't he?
I suppose Rudy Garcia went off to Liga 1.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just strange. Maybe he'll end up at Parma. I know he played there for a bit, so he might end up here with me. We could be friends, me and Stefano.
Get matching turtlenecks.
We could do. I'm not sure I could pull it off quite as well as him. My skin's a little too pale for that, I reckon. But I'd give it a go if Stefano was buying. Just like Vito did have to drop out. I don't know what's happened, but Vito had to leave. So hopefully everything's okay there. I don't think there's anything left for us to talk about. Is there? Torino played. They drew.
Multiple red cards, yeah.
Yeah, Nicolo Barella.
Yeah.
It's his one flaw, isn't it? He's just a hothead.
Flaw.
And
he's got to get that out of his game sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
because
it would turn big clubs off getting him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and also I'm just thinking about the Euros are only 15 months away, and international referees, particularly in tournaments, are slightly more or less forgiving than maybe domestic referees. And if Italy are going to do anything at that competition, then Mancini's going to need players that, particularly midfield, where you're going to need to control the game. He's going to want players that he can trust, not to do anything a little rash. And the player was moving towards the edge of the box, but he was going nowhere. Even Barella, the speed he came from nowhere just to clatter into them. It was reckless.
Yeah, he does have that in him though. And even when he's not involved in a tackle, he loves getting involved too.
And he's aware of it. I've seen interviews where he said, "Oh, this is weakness in my game. It's something I've got," and then he doesn't do anything about it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But when you play football, it happens, right? You can know you're angry, but then the decision goes against your team and you still lose it anyway, even though you shouldn't. It happens. But he's still a top player, and I think whatever happens, he should be starting for Italy at the Euros next summer, provided they're there. So I like him. I think that's it. Shall we? I don't know, Kev. Have you seen what's been going on in Serie B lately? Because it looks like it's a lot of fun down there. There was a big game this weekend. Benevento played Palermo in a game that Benevento really, really had to win at home. They lost 2-1, and Palermo are now well placed to really challenge. So the top three are now Brescia look like they're up, basically. Lecce are second, and Palermo are a point behind them with a game in hand. So it will be those three challenging for the top two, you would imagine. And then we've got Benevento, Pescara, Verona, Spezia, Cittadella, Perugia, all fighting it out for the playoff places. So it's going to be interesting there again. Brescia coming back up will be, from an Atalanta perspective, tasty, if nothing else.
Yeah, I must admit, I haven't paid too much attention other than when I'm looking for trips over to Italy, because I'm desperate to go and check out the Venezia stadium. And I think on the first May bank holiday, they've got Pescara, which would obviously have something riding on it with regards to the promotion from Serie B. But I'm yet to decide where I'm going. So
do, if it's at all possible, go, because they're going to move out of there, and it's a little dump, but it's nice. It's really nice to watch football there.
Parma Sampdoria is still on the cards for that weekend. So
with me.
Yes. Wow. Yeah.
Am I at that game? Let me just.
I don't know. I potentially have the wife with me, so it wouldn't be with you.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but you'd be in this. I am at Parma, Sam. So
okay.
If you're here, I'll show you some Nice local foods, nice local restaurants. It'd be a good time. All right. Oh, by the way, while we're talking about Serie B, everyone go over to Serie A FFC on Twitter and look at the video of Foggia's fans from Venezia at the weekend, because it's ridiculous what they got up to. The flares, the smoke bombs. There's a thick cloud of black smoke. You just can't see anything. That's just amazing. And this is why teams like that should come to Serie A, just to make things a little bit crazy. Because Serie A fans are mad, but they're not Foggia mad. So that'd be a welcome addition, but it's not happening this year because they're some way away from the playoff places. But anything else to add, Kev?
No, I don't think so, Connor. It's been a relatively quiet weekend.
It was. We still managed to ramble on for an hour. What club deserves to have the outro music this week? I'll let you decide.
Oh, wow. Chievo did leave us.
Yeah, will we do Chievo?
Let's do Chievo.
All right, then. And on that note, head over to ForzaItalianFootball.com for all of your Serie A news, your match coverage. Remember, we're at the games every single week. What else have we got? We've got Instagram at ForzaItalianFootball.com, or no, at ForzaItalianFootball, which is actually really good to follow on a match day because it's fun. Twitter at Serie A FFC, Facebook at Forza Italian Football. Me and Kev are both on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and so too is Vito Doria. So get us there. Until next week, Kev, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.